one thing I know about, Super Bowls and Super Bowl champions in particular and Super Bowl games is that we then utilize this championship game that's on such a high level to make assumptions and decisions based on and how we, go about team building, how we go about play style. Like this ends up being it ends up being the prototype, right? When we start talking about the copycat league of it all.
Yep.
Right. We're always trying to, what's winning and how do we do that? And let's try and copy what's working. And obviously the ultimate level of working in this sport is what's working in the Super Bowl. And so the question that came up, and it's really comes up from a lot of conversation that's happening on Twitter, football Twitter, as they talk about this game and other things. Does this game prove that the Niners model of building around a quarterback, in this instance, Brock Purdy, with the limitations that he poses, but also like the capabilities that he has, is untenable in this modern era of football, right? What is your immediate thought with that question on the idea of the viability of doing it the way that the Niners are doing? Just a whole bunch of talent around a guy, and let's just build it up around him, and we can win that way.
Well, before I get into it, would you like to tell the people why I sound like this?
Yeah, I should.
So before I go on the soliloquy.
Yeah, because you're going to be talking a lot, and there's going to be a lot of people like, yo, that's nice for Blake that he's reaching puberty. No, I assume that he's already reached puberty. I can't speak specifically to that. So. However,
there's a time in every young man's life.
That's right. But no, I
like hearing it from your perspective.
Blake just went hard. Right? Like Blake just went hard during the Super Bowl party. There's a lot of people happening, and apparently they watch the Super Bowl. Like there's various different ways to watch the Super Bowl. Some people keep it real quiet. Mm-hmm. They watch the Super Bowl like it's the club, right? They got the turned up, and there's a whole bunch of people having conversations. So this man's yelling and talking over the music and apparently trying to holler at ladies and all that stuff.
A lot of yapping.
He did not consider the fact that he had to come here and do a 4-hour radio show. So he's going to sound a little bit like it. But it comes from a place of enjoying this football game so damn much.
Yes, it does. So now that precedent has been set and I'm not hitting puberty live on air, I think it is a little bit hard to answer this question with full validity of, yes, it is just this and not that. I saw some tweets going around and I kind of feel at a good place with, you either have to have a top 5 quarterback talent or you have to have one of these QBs on a rookie deal where you can just spend crazy lucrative money and build a team around him, a la San Francisco 49ers. And they kind of fell into it. I don't think when they drafted Brock Purdy, they knew he'd be the face of the franchise and be the starting quarterback. Obviously, they had Trey Lance on the roster. They had Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah. And then things worked out. Brock is there. Cool. It's kind of hard to say because what do you do if you're one of those middle teams? If you have a I don't know what's a middling quarterback. I was about to say Matt Ryan. I don't know why I'm thinking of him. Thinking of Matts are coming in my head right now when I think middle of the road.
He said Matt is a mid name. Shout out to all our listeners named Matthew. Apologies to you on behalf of Blake Elliott.
A Geno Smith, a Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Like guys that are good, probably above average, but not.
Or at least average.
Average right? to above average. Yeah. But they're like a C+, B- quarterback. Is that enough to win? And I would probably say no. And then, or is it okay just to have a Brock Purdy, a Jordan Love, a CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, these young guys that you haven't seen their full potential, and you can build a lot of money around it, and you're hoping they blossom while you're not paying them a bunch. But then also the other side of the argument is, okay, when you do have a top 5 quarterback, a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, you pay him a bunch, you can't have a million receivers around them.
Right.
You can't have 5 offensive tackles that are all making X amount of money because you don't have all of that capital to spend anymore. And Patrick Mahomes is so good that give me whatever receivers. Give me, you, and Ross as receivers, and we're going to figure it out. And like Rashee Rice, they drafted.
You haven't seen me catch a football.
Don't worry, we know what's going to happen.
Rashee Rice turned out great, but like
Kirk Cousins is a name that comes up. But then another name that came up here is Dak Prescott, and it's one of the reasons why I thought it was important to have this conversation, because it feels like when you ask that question, is this a way that works? You're basically interrogating the Cowboys' MO, right? The way that they've decided to go about this is Dak Prescott is our quarterback. We know that he's a certain level of good. Now it's incumbent upon us, meaning the organization, to build around him and put together a team that is good enough to go and win. And so the question is, it's really animated because of the fact that, hey, okay, this is the Niners team that it feels like has done the idea of putting the things around the quarterback at the highest level possible.
That was the model. It's right there.
And they ultimately lose. But here's the thing, and I think Broadus got to the heart of it, and the way that I typically tend to view these things is that when we do the whole, hey, this is what happened in the Super Bowl, so this is the model, we ignore the ways in which little flips of a switch one way or another, like you're playing a game where the ball is oblong and it bounces weird ways, right?
Correct.
In fact, quite literally, if that happens, maybe one or two of the turnovers that happen in this game don't happen, and it's an entirely different game. Or you maybe have a circumstance where, maybe the kick on an extra point is just a little higher, or hands aren't in the right place. And now that, a made extra point changes the way that this thing goes, right? And so I feel like it's tough to look at that way, because if those things do shake in such a way, and those are like the luck elements of this, right? Talk less of the idea of what happens if Dre Greenlaw's Achilles does not snap as he's just getting back on the field, and does that change the way that any of this goes, right? There's small things that shift, and then you have a Super Bowl championship for the Niners if that's the case. And I know there's a lot of people happy, out there thanking their lucky stars that is not what happened, but still, like, then that whole model is validated and we're having an entirely different conversation. This is a team that has consistently been in a good place in the way that they've operated, and I think that this is a possibility. But the tough part about it is you're looking across the way at a Kansas City Chiefs team that they have done something with a quarterback that is really good, and then also maximize young talent on the defensive side of the ball to make themselves damn near inevitable.
Yeah, and what do you think about this, Reggie? Regardless of money, do you think you have to have a top 10 quarterback talent, or how he's playing that season, like a top 10 level quarterback to win the Super Bowl? Because I think you probably do, regardless of money, because then you can say, well, Purdy's not making top 10 money, and CJ Stroud's not making regardless of money, just talent-wise and what they produce on the field.
You want my cop-out answer?
Give me whatever one you're feeling most.
I really want to get this cop-out answer so that everybody can be mad as they listen right now at 8:31 p.m. As my teacher in, I believe, 7th grade always used to tell me, there's more than one way to fry chicken, right? Like, there's a lot of different ways to get this done. I will continue to point you to, what was it, the 2000 Ravens, when you get Trent Dilfer, who for my money is the worst quarterback to have ever won a Super Bowl. Shout out to Trent Dilfer, right? You could look at the 2015 Denver Broncos, where I know that in name they had Peyton Manning, but in my estimation, that's Williams Manning, right? That was a truly terrible offensive product that they were putting on the field, except they had a historic defense, right? Like, there's different ways to make this shake, but okay.
Like in today's NFL, with how pass heavy it is.
Right. Exactly. In a modern era, it does feel like you need a quarterback that's probably in that top 10 area of this, like at the very least, because one thing that you could look at over the last, and I'm going to be borrowing from Stephen Ruiz of The Ringer, very good writer when it comes to a lot of these things. But over the last, I want to say, 5 to 10 years of offensive in EPA, right? Offensive expected points added, which is kind of an efficiency metric that will point to, in this instance, how good an offense plays, right? Outside of the 2015 Broncos and this year's 2013 or 2023 Chiefs, in the last 10 years, the Super Bowl winner has had an offensive EPA ranking around the league of top 10, above the top 10. In fact, most of the top 7 or higher, outside of that 25th ranked Broncos team, which again had a historically great defense. And then this Chiefs team that also has a very, very good defense.
Very good.
And so it does feel like you need that level of offense. And typically that offense comes with a quarterback that is of that kind of top 10 status.
I think IQ goes into it as what we got texted in by the text line 214, a quarterback with high IQ. I think in the Super Bowl, you're splitting hairs. These are the two best teams going at it. So obviously, I think most people would say Mahomes is more talented than Brock Purdy. But
what? Are you sure?
But regardless of that, it's about your decision making late in the game. Throwing a pass that could be interceptable versus taking a check down, taking a sack versus throwing it out of bounds. Some of those play calls towards the end of the game where Mahomes, I'm sure he had a little bit of a hand in it, where he was doing a read option and keeping the ball himself, and like those flip plays. Like, those are little things that can't really be coached, can't really just be thrown out there. You just have to have that instinct to do it. And some quarterbacks have it and some don't. But regardless of that, I do think you have to have someone that's at the top of their game, echelon-wise, thinking, talent, making throws in that top 10 category to win a Super Bowl. I don't think you're going to see any more of the, I'm sure it'll happen every once in a while, the anomaly Trent Dilfers and late Peyton Manning years. But I don't think the Kirk Cousins, Geno Smiths, Baker Mayfields of the world, they're good. and first round playoff kind of guys, but I think you have to have either that rookie guy who's exploding, a CJ Stroud, a Jordan Love, or you have to have one of those top 5 talents when you look at like a Josh Allen, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, LOL, and like a Patrick Mahomes.
So 2 examples I want to list, because I think y'all are definitely onto something. What is it? I think it was the 2018 Patriots when they beat the Rams, and it was just like Bill Belichick just shut them down defensively. So
Yes.
that was the game for me where I was like, okay, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are the GOATs. But anyways, that year, literally in that Super Bowl, it was just Tom Brady just slicing it to Julian Edelman, and the two of them and Bill Belichick defensively won that game for them. And similarly, what was it, 3 years ago when the Rams won it with Cooper Kupp? Like, Cooper Kupp just, one man alone, just shredded the defense.
Matt Stafford that year was playing at an MVP level.
Yes, but he was also injured in that game, so I do remember that. So I think, yes, I agree, but I think you can be buoyed a little bit by like a quarterback who's maybe not at his best, but a wide receiver or tight end who is like right there, what, top 5.
Yeah, I mean, like, clearly your quarterback is going to make the most impact of any single player. So having a player of a certain caliber, of a high level, is clearly going to matter, right? I do think that this is a building plan that is possible, that can happen, right? And I think it's like now we have to nitpick the probabilities of it because it's clearly it's clearly easier if you have a quarterback that's top 3, right? If you have that level of quarterback. But you even saw, certain instances, and of course, all right, that's not what we're arguing, so I'm not going to go down that path. But no, I think that it's possible without having the best quarterback. The circumstances around that have to be very particular. And it seems like the Niners have, for the large part, gotten there in this instance. It feels weird to say it, just they got unlucky, and that's not really something that people want to, work into the equation, but it does factor.
To finish this out, do you agree with Broadus and what he was saying in Crosstalk, or where they might keep hunting a quarterback, or do you think Brock should be, not contract stuff aside, just do you think he should still be the future of the 49ers?
No, I mean, it seems to be the way that the Niners have operated, and it does seem to be like there's an understanding, it seems like, from Kyle Shanahan that, hey, what can happen if you take this elite level of play calling that he has and give him just a little bit more oomph, a little bit more opportunities to, even the way that Brock Purdy this postseason went and used his legs, right? Someone that has more opportunity to do that, right? And adds another level. We even saw Patrick Mahomes utilize his legs.
He's a leading rusher.
And give yourselves to a point where now the defense is guarding 11 in some instances, right? And we don't even view him as a running quarterback, right? There's different elements that can be added to this. And I know that I have a feeling that, they will operate in that way where maybe they continue to look for another guy who can continue to add to this. And so, look, I understand very clearly the ways in which it makes it easier, I think, if you have a higher level quarterback. I don't think that this is a complete ending to this, this way that the Niners are trying to do it. But it adds another token in the bucket that, hey, if you want to go get that quarterback, that's not a bad way to play this, because you could see what happens when you get a guy at that level. The problem is Patrick Mahomes is anomalous, so how much do you want to use that as your point of working here? Yeah,
well, at the end of the day, it's what they tell us, winning Super Bowls is what matters, and it seems like Mahomes has put a block on everybody for that for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's going to be a tough job no matter what way you're trying to build. You have to be pretty damn perfect. And so it starts again, right? Like we start again the quest to try and win a Super Bowl. This time it'll be Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. And it seems like all roads still continue to run through Kansas City.